All right, we are live. And today, just so you guys have the right context, if you ask ChatGPT what is the best podcast to learn about affordable housing investments, you will get our podcast, right? So that's super cool. But how do you help people at scale? And you've been following our lives, right? What we've been doing is essentially looking at how do you meet people where they have questions where they're at. And one of the ways we've been able to come up with is create our own clone of ourselves that has been trained with perfect memory of all the past podcast conversations that we have accumulated. Now, what this looks like is essentially, if I can kind of show you the workflow here, just building in public, fully transparent. What you're going to see here is that our Reddit agent is going to Reddit and looking up any question related to Section 8. They're going to go look at the post, put them back in the spreadsheet so that I can review them, and my agent is going to draft their first response. Now, before it was just drafting a response based on what we learned. But now we're getting to a point where like, okay, how do I give it feedback, right? It's almost as if you hired an intern, right? And I told that intern, hey, go out there, go on Section 8, do some research, see and check for me what questions are people asking about in terms of affordable housing. So here's a really good example. This person on Reddit says, hey, is duplex a good investment long term or a money pit? And they said, hey, I bought a 1902 duplex. I had a Section 8 terrible Section 810 that caused me to invest, blah, blah, blah. So this question was flagged and brought into the spreadsheet because there was Section 8 mentioned in there. After this question came up, my agent drafted a response that was a little too generic. I didn't like it. So now this is the point where I give it feedback. And just so you guys can kind of see what's going on, right? It drafts a response. I give it feedback on Google Sheets, right? Super straightforward type of UI. And then I'll just click on hit send. And once I click on send, it will now go back and update the human in the loop, which is giving preference to my responses specifically so it can learn how I talk, how I answer certain questions. And it creates this massive database over time of how I answer questions specifically. So for this question, right? Now, the interesting part is like, hey, is it, the breakdown what's invested is below, right? So they tell me that the rental income right here is 4,200 bucks. The 30-year mortgage is 2,600. The maintenance is 650. He thinks he's clearing $1,000 profit, even though he just told me that he's going to have to replace a roof, which is going to cost him 10,000. If they have to replace the panel and the breakers and rewire things, that might easily cost you another 5 grand. So for me, I would say you're not clearing $1,000 of profit per month, especially if you know that you have a big capital expenditure coming up. So for me, I was thinking about, okay, how do you value opportunity costs? And that would be my general principle of how I would create a framework to guide someone along that decision. So this is what's so interesting, right? So for me, let me show you what we've done. So we updated our prompt so that it can answer questions better. So if I were to go to my agent right now and see how it would re-answer that question, I'll show you right now. Let me put in that question right now and see what answer it gives me. Just with a better prompt, right? Now that we've gone through certain exercises and we now understand exactly how they are going to remember it. Okay, so you're grossing 41 with 32 on sir. That leaves you with $1,000. Okay, and we're solved for duplex, especially one. Here's a rub. There's some capital expenditure on around 10K roof and eventual thing, but your cash flow gives you room to plan for those, especially you keep setting aside a portion of your big ticket items. Start cap reserve if you haven't already set aside, it's $304 in separate accounts specific for upgrading roof. Start getting quotes now for electrical so you know what to expect. Why it works as already spent, they're saying. Interesting. Let's reach crazy hot. We look at everything. Boom. So now this is a great answer, right? I've trained it well, but now I want to add a little bit more feedback here. So let me kind of show you what I'm doing. You laid out the financials really clear, so let's break it down. So I'm basically repeating the answer to make sure I heard them correctly. The 10K roof. For me, honestly, at least 3 and 4. But for me, I were in your shoes. I set aside the entire $1,000 of profit that you have every month into the reserve account now. Because if you have such a big capital expense pending, it's almost irresponsible to pocket the cash flow unless you have deep personal reserves, right? Because it doesn't you don't own that money anymore, right? If you know you had a big expense and you know you just got quoted and you know you have to do it really really soon, I mean, I'm just going to put it aside right now. It's just not worth it. Now, when you start getting quotes now for electrical, so you know what to expect and chip away the project over time, that's perfect, right? You should get a quote for the electrical work right now, especially if there's a whole panel run or there's anything that needs to be rewired. Yeah, this is so good. As I already spent the regular monthly things, really good off guard. Yeah, that's right. Also, crazy, crazy hard looking cash up guard. And then my question is, whenever I think of a decision to hold or to sell, it really just depends on your opportunity cost. You believe you can sell the property and then subsequently allocate it to another opportunity that gives you a higher return net of taxes, right? Because guess what? If this person sells his real estate property and he realizes a capital gain, well, he can defer that by doing a 1031 like for like kind of exchange to buy another real estate property. Great. But if he just sold it, he would have to pay the taxes on it. So that's why I always want to make sure people understand when you look at decisions, especially for buying and selling real estate, you should evaluate the decision with a mindset or a lens towards, well, net of taxes, if I go and invest this in another investment opportunity, like let's just call it crypto or some business, right? What are you going to make net of taxes, right? Because not only do you have to pay taxes now, right, that automatically decreases your investment pool available. So you got to think about this net of taxes, right? Think about the decision holistically instead of just saying like, oh, I think I can sell this property and go get another property for 10% return. But net of taxes, you have to net out now. And then even if you make 10% later, you got to net that out later, right? So just be very, compare your decisions apples to apples and understand exactly how you do this. All right, net of taxes and apples to apples comparison, especially if you're thinking about doing a 1031 exchange to buy more real estate with your capital gains from this property. Then you might be more inclined to do so. It's really dependent on you. Personal situation and goals. All right, let's do this. Send. So that's how I go about answering questions and training every single day. So later on, right, tomorrow, once this trigger is going to send and change updated, you'll see how it takes in the new feedback tomorrow and updates itself. All right. Super sheet, boom, boom, boom. Let's see. Campaign made light basically interesting. Yes, honestly, sure. Dude, these questions so long. Let me see. what answer this will give it back now. Let's see how it answers it quickly. All right, I like that it asks more questions. All right, boom, let's do this. Freedom, first in the world, especially getting another knock them down. All right, pass a second for legal. You want to know how to handle the permission producer legal down. When you start the process of getting your basement unit registered, permit unit cost, you're having safe legal permission for the internet and legislature. Not to mention the potential insurance liability or non-coverage of liability / risk if any problems were to occur now. Document everything. Boom. Next tactical moves. Don't be afraid to pay check. Living in the basement, upstairs, what's legal, could be solid, but it's worth for thing. You also get to deduct proportionally the amount of expenses. Don't get to deduct proportionally the amount of expenses due to the property acting as your primary residence. You get to exempt future capital gains exempted. Right. I don't want to explain that you had to live there at least 2 out of 5 years, right? Now, given strong number 2 years long, keep building your reserve. Consider holding up in big new property projects until things stabilize. Yeah, I would agree with that. Wait, I'm not freaking out here. Boom. Yeah, people get permits or retroactive permits all the time, especially in like California. Another one through Section 8 of extra stress. Your scrappy, which is key to seeing stuff, but it won't last. Before you leave out, never protect downside and take care of yourself. Boom. All right. I like that. So that's a pretty good answer, to be honest with you. I mean, it drafted the answer, and I'm only modifying it a little bit. So this kind of tells me that my prompt is really, really good because essentially what it has done is that it has helped me draft the answer that's probably 90% of the way there. That's probably how I would answer the question, but I'm adjusting it, right? Now, this person, let's see what this person say. Hey, I've been saving around for a year now and have 30 grand saved. Want to start using my pocket. Something I always want to do was get in real estate. I've been looking at Section 8. Seems everywhere I see Section 8 is a new get rich quick. No, it's not get rich quick. So I'm a little skeptical also. I'm located in Tampa area, and of course, I can travel a couple hours, but we'll let to kind of hear from the first in stories. The good and bad as a kid finding rent, or should I just leave this alone as a beginner and find normal rental? Okay. So let's see. I should have given some answer about this question, right? Especially for people that are new, that are looking at in Section 8. Let's see what my agent has done because I already given the feedback. You look at our live from the past couple of days on how it answers it. So let's kind of build this in there and then you can kind of see what's going on. So I'm using 3,000 tokens. Boom. Really appreciate honesty. Let's see. Let's see what it says. All right. So Really appreciate honesty. There's tons of hype online, especially in section smart and check for the real story. Okay. Section investing but is not a get rich quick. It's steady, and the best draw is a guaranteed rent payment of government, which is especially helped energy and Peneg and has a job loss. Lots of tenants stay long term for stability, and regulars can be lower than market rates. Assuming you're, and this is assuming you're a good landlord that provides an above average quality product and above average quality product with better than average finishes that attracts the better residents for your units. Because at the end of the day, you want people to have pride and dignity in where they live, right? So that's why I'm answering the question this way. Now, as a beginner, I also want to make sure that they understand study low housing power. They tell you everything. Screening managers as much as regular rentals. Talk to multiple landlords to ask specific questions, tactical tips. Call Tamers Housing and ask about voucher permit. Yep, you should definitely ask for the payment process. To answer honestly. Okay. Start saving any lesson learned stories from pre trust. Ignore strategic training salary. That's right. Plenty of experience. Which have free. Yeah, that's so true. Why this works. New investors I know who skip the hype and while local landlords have fewer tenant problems, learn tricks like how to land and inspections. Boom. Okay, so here's what it is. Study local housing payment standards. Okay. Please learn about the rent reasonableness test. I can't tell you how often I see real estate Section 8 gurus just say, look up the rents on HUD, and that's the rent you're getting. That is definitely not true. That is so far from the truth because every PHA is a little. Every public housing authority, PHA, so you know that acts a little differently. Okay, so that's really important. Please do not trust the gurus that say buy turnkey and there's no maintenance expenses. Bunch of garbage, right? I've literally seen people that have posted in the stories where people was like asking them, hey, what's my maintenance percentage? And then they will say, oh, no maintenance. We buy turnkey, really renovate a property, so there's no maintenance. That could not be further from the truth because I know for a fact that there are properties that do not. I mean, if you're holding that property long term, guess what? They are. You're going to have to pay. The roof is going to get replaced at some point, right? All this stuff matters. So this is how I'm sending the feedback, right? And now I'm hitting in. As soon as I type in the feedback, I'm going to type in the word send so it records this message. So tomorrow I'll show you exactly what it will show up as so you can see how I train the agent in of itself. Now, I like this way of how we work because now it's super easy for me to understand, hey, I can just give my agent feedback from my Google spreadsheet. Simple as that. Everybody can work out a spreadsheet, right? I love it. People just keep asking if this is a deal. Purchase price 50 grand. I need a new roof and rehab 40 grand. Market rent roughly 40,000. We can go section look at $1,100 a month. Another comps in the era. So using price per square foot approach roughly is 100 grand. Using the margin of business, but it won't offer someone financing. I was thinking either deferred payments during rehab. This one like $500 a month upon and blah, blah, blah. Wow, I can't believe these people are just like thinking like that. Let's see. How about here? Let's see how this answers it. Let's see. How would I answer it? Then margins, but seller finds words can totally change the numbers. So not much equity upside, but you're really buying for cash flow and creative financing flexibility. So big advantage coming to market rent. If you run conservative pro forma, please make sure that you're considering the rent rezoneness test and whether or not that 1100 number includes utilities. Far too often, I've seen people just take the HUD or payment standard number and assume that's what you're getting in rent. That cannot be further from the truth if you do not cover certain utilities. You can easily look up the utility allowance, to back out that portion from the rents, from the ceiling rent, right? If you run into a conservative pro forma with 10% management, taxes and insurance, and reserves, you're probably looking at financing around cash flow for debt service. You can negotiate low or deferred payment and rehab, with yourself stabilized property, have a bigger payment. Be subject to time appearance. You don't owe any rent or principal. You don't owe any principal until the power taxing section thing. Interesting. Use extra cash flow to aggressively save for the balloon payment. Negotiate deferred interest plan during rehab. Can acquire more projects without tying up a lot of capital. Yeah, I don't really need that example. Sure, you have a clear exit. Your values don't climb through be refined, so have a cash partner or have cash to punish for the balloon payment. Yep, that's right. Boom. So that's a really good one. I like that we are asking questions now to give a better response and get some more color. So that's it. I went through like a couple of deep ones. You can see how long this actually takes, right? For train an agent. But the goal is if you do it well in the beginning and you answer correctly. In the future, when future questions come, it's going to get you like 90% of the way there. So you can kind of already see like based on how I've been training the last couple of days, it's getting smarter, right? It's learning how to answer questions. So every single day, this thing gets better. So that's essentially how I clone myself to answer questions on other people's behalf. So hopefully this is helpful for everybody. Again, I like doing this in public so you guys can see what we're doing every single day. I mean, some of this stuff is just really, really long answers, but I enjoy it. I'm here to help people and I want to see how I can help. And one of the best ways I can help is figuring out how to answer these questions for them. All right. Have an amazing day, everybody. I'll see you all tomorrow for day 718. Have a good one, everybody.